this a little. Settings. Position. Is it looking okay? Okay. Let me join up. Turn down my sound. Okay. So, I didn't prepare anything for today. I was thinking of probably just doing some Faceloops, guys. Also, I gotta wipe my glasses down. This time I was a little bit delayed. I was at the grocery store, but one that I normally don't go to. It's a little further away because I was getting various Asian food ingredients. So my schedule's a little bit off, but hello, Muska. But I figured today I would mess with just drawing some single, double, but like one head Faceloops, guys. So not like what my shirt is, but something more like, I guess the closest example I have is this biggin. I got a test print done, and it's decent, but I might need to prep things for it a bit better. The idea of having some big guys from some small guys, but Faceloops, but like just some thicker versions of some of these dudes. But that's what I'm planning on doing big. Because yesterday I did some big blockhead guys and then messed with the scale on those, but I have a little less consistency with the style of my Faceloops characters. So we're just going to try and do some various approaches to drawing a face. See where that takes me, and then I might try to make it bigger or smaller, have multiples. Hello, Dalgo Brito. I'm also, when I got some food at the grocery store, I also got some like straight jasmine. Hey, Alex. I want to see how that tastes because I like jasmine green tea a lot, but never had just like straight jasmine flowers in tea. So let's just try drawing some faces. Going with my basic guy. This paper pulls a little bit more ink from the brush. That's sort of like a basic dude, where I typically go eye, nose, eye, ear, mouth, and then a few different ways to either cut across with the mouth, come back, or cut back this way, then ear. This is the one that tends to be the sort of least invasive, the one that communicates without as much repetition. Let's see how this straight jasmine tea tastes. Very light. Could try having more flowers or something. I'm figuring it out. And then let's try a character that has a little bit more line work to it. So with this guy, if you cut across, then you cross over, coming back this way. Thank you, Muska. And that's the one that's easiest to sort of have a predictable movement to it. Hey, Elizabeth. But I've also tried instances where I will start with the mouth And then you can try going to the nose. Because it was a bit of refinement from when I first was doing these, because I started doing them based on contour drawings or blind contour drawings, where you sort of use lines to describe things without lifting, and you end up with a lot more overlapping lines, stuff like that. And it's also, you can't really do blind contour with a brush because you don't know when you have ink or not. But there's a little less distinction with these sorts. You can get better at it, but it's hard to recognize someone's blind contour drawings. Thank you, Ted Bundy. No, Ted Bundy's monobrow. That's a little less threatening, but it's still a specific thing. When I start to read people's names, I usually try and sort of sound it out quickly, and I was able to recognize that that is not your given name. If it is, that's a lot. But when it comes to something like this sort of outline or this sort of line work, it's less discernible. There's a little less identity to it, because I've seen so many people do very similar things to what this looks like, but far fewer people who have this specific sort of direction where it's refined to this sort of thing. It's kind of like a signature versus general handwriting, maybe. I can see that Muska about drawing with uninterrupted line. Gonna let this steep longer. Maybe also getting the water hotter. I don't know. I'm gonna mess with that. So let's try double face. Once you incorporate a second face, or a second set of eyes and nose, then you have both more and fewer directions in which you can go without crossing things over multiple times. So like, if you have a nose to an eye to a nose, now at this point you have a few different options for drawing the way that I draw these faces. You can either go across, which means that you end up with this line that interrupts, but it also sort of helps to ground the face. It gives it a little bit more of a shape that way. Or you can treat the same way, go across, and then you cut back. And then you no longer have this line that cuts over the ear, but you do have these two sort of exit points, but they already exist over here. Once you move to 3 faces, it restricts what you can really do with the lips. You can have one side cut over, and it means that you have to sort of do that weird bit. I don't really like doing it on one side. I like to have a little bit more of a direction to it. I prefer to have it go all the way across. But even with lips in that form, you have a few different options. So when you're crossing these lips, for how I do it, you can go like that. You can cut back. You can start in the middle. You can start in the middle and go back that way. You can DM me whatever sort of profile. Profiles are more difficult to simplify because when you have a profile, most of the information is the relationship between the nose and the mouth. If you're doing a straight profile, it's harder. If you're doing one that's like loop-de-loop, then you start to have a weird relationship with the lips to the face line. At least in my experience. Maybe you solved it and did a better version than what I've done. I think this might be that I end up putting like jasmine in with green tea. Might need more flowers in there. It's not the same fragrance that I expected. Anyway, I found that 3 faces is about as wide as I can comfortably go with the width of these guys. Did I start recording? Okay, that was weird. I often have a moment where I'm like, did I record? So once you get to 4 faces, it starts to abstract it more than what I want it to be, and you lose some of the specificity. There's a balance. Where if you are looking for a face like this, you can see it, but the more you repeat something, the less it seems to sort of have meaning. And that's sort of true when I read things out loud. Like you ever read a word too many times and you're like, I said garage too many times today, and so suddenly garage doesn't seem like a word. And then you spell it out and you doubt that that's the way it's spelled because you've heard it or seen it so many times that it no longer is just that word. It's this echo of something that you've done or seen or experienced before, and it's just you devolve it into the elements of it. So I start to just see like that G R, and it, especially if it's a word you don't use often and suddenly you use it very frequently. Anyway, the plan for today is maybe try to get some faces that'll translate well to a larger scale, and it might be just going with a chunky or something or other. But as soon as I start to get bigger with my lines and my faces, they lose some of the softer qualities that you have in some of these. I tend to end up, by default, accidentally getting things to be more angular, which I don't necessarily want. Or they're too soft or too clean, and I don't know, I really like small, sketchy things. And it's much easier to get that aesthetic by just working smaller for me and then blowing it up, making it larger. It also doesn't help that working with ink, you end up with the brush doesn't hold the ink as long. I don't really have a specific thing. It's more like whatever the intended scale of the outcome is. But I like playing with how scale influences how something looks. Oh, I didn't realize I was so far out of frame with that guy. So the thing yesterday that I worked on was a blockhead at different scales. I like to sort of justify why things are the size that they are. So if something's really big, I tend to work with something where I'm like, I couldn't do this very small. And try and see what the advantages are of whatever format, which sometimes means that what people are expecting is not what I create, because they've got an understanding of what work I've made in the past, but they've only seen a specific format, which might be based on small scale work. And so when it gets blown up to a larger size, the elements, the defining components of it shift. And what you're left with is something that's more angular or doesn't have that same shift in line weight quality as you like or are experienced with my work at a smaller scale. Or just anyone's work at whatever scale. Let's draw a little tiny guy. There's also a bit more a reflection of the tool being used at different scales. Where how this brush sort of bounces and pulls based on the length of the bristles changes how the line functions at a small scale. Well, for black and white, it's more absolute things. I really like shadows. I like things that I studied graphic design in school, and I liked form and line better than color. Because color always changed format, or when something dries, there's a harsh contrast between a color when you paint it and the color when it dries and the substrate that it's on, and how much ink and how much time, and also color gets very expensive very quickly. And I didn't like that when I would mix a color. Let me use one of these guys. When I would mix a color, it would get to be like the perfect color that I wanted it to be, and then it would dry, and suddenly that color was completely different, or whatever lighting I was around completely changed what the color was. And even if you worked for a long time with a printer, you can't transfer those settings to another printer and expect things to be exactly the same. Color for me is a lot more finicky, and I don't have as much comfort in that space. and it's more expensive. I sort of found more of a personal sense of style when I did not have money to be spending on printing in color or getting a bunch of different kinds of paint. You can sort of settle into black and white. I like the movie Nebraska. That's a black and white movie, and I remember reading something about it where in contemporary times when you decide to have a movie in black and white, it's a choice that sort of separates the work from reality. You're not trying to be recreating a specific thing. You're presenting something and very immediately sort of being like, this isn't real. This is an interpolation. This is a recreation. This is a thing that's being shared again. But it's not trying to convince you that it's a real thing happening in front of you. And maybe that sort of relationship is something I find appealing too. I get very anxious with the idea of unintentionally lying to someone. Makes me nervous to think that I might have misled someone, even if it's unintentional. Okay. I don't know. Maybe I'll scan some stuff. Ooh, my computer is not plugged in. There it goes. Okay. I had plugged in the charger, but I had not plugged in the actual wall outlet. Yeah, so I think today I'm just going to end up scanning some of these guys, making some stuff from there. Not a particularly involved day of working, but should be good. I'm just going to scan this at a crazy high resolution because it's one page. Any questions, concerns, comments, things you want to see, don't want to see? This isn't the most exciting one that I'm going about doing today, but talking a bit. $4,800. Let's go for it. Other. Don't think I made a folder for today because I 10-09-2020. This one. 10-9. Some Faceloops. Now we get to wait for like 5 minutes. Graphite spreads too much. It's messy. Ink dries. That's why I prefer ink. Also ink, I like brushes a lot. I don't like how harsh graphite graphite I don't like because it's too harsh of an immediate line, while also smudging super easily. And I touch things too much. I like pastels is like the most that I go for, something where you smudge, or maybe acrylic paint, but I like something that isn't so unintentionally messy as graphite. Graphite I don't like, and it also never gets so dark because it's too reflective. You can get ink that remains more of a matte to it. I'll sketch some in pencil, but it digs too much into things. It doesn't absorb. Where ink can absorb and you get a few more options with it, where you can get more of a matte look to ink if you want it. You can also put it on a lot more different surfaces if you get the right kind of ink. My hair's weird today. Let's make it weirder. Other questions while this thing is slowly scanning for the next 5 minutes maybe? Boop. Draw some guys. I have not tried Stuart Simple Black Paint. Dream project? Probably just printing a bunch of stuff at different scales. Ultramat, I'm not familiar with it as a thing. I don't need things to be like super matte, but there's like not a graphite that looks matte. It's always going to be shiny. I like the Sumi because it's not particularly shiny. Having access to a lot of printing possibilities will be cool. I like that as an idea, but I don't know what like a dream project. I don't have one specifically in mind that I would want. Done some cool projects. I don't know. I think it just would be having a lot of materials available for large scale items. I haven't worked with metal in a long time. I enjoyed welding, but more than welding specifically, I enjoyed hot bending. I liked having something that you had the facilities to control something that very soon afterwards would be immediately quite rigid. Where there's a lot of time in between. I also want to do ceramics again sometime. I haven't done ceramics in a while. Just have an opportunity to revisit some of that. I tried looking around to see if there's ceramic studios that are pretty open around me. Most of them it's like you can take a ceramics class and it's kind of pricey. I'm live streaming daily. I have been for 3 weeks. I'm getting closer to a month. If you want to look, you can watch all the ones that I've done in the last few weeks. I know you don't have the interaction and it's not quite the same appeal, but if you just like watching them in the background, I upload them to YouTube after doing these. So if you search like YouTube live stream TraceLoops, it should pop up, or just search TraceLoops on YouTube, they should pop up. And there's, let's see, each one, the shortest one's like 40 minutes, which this one might rival that. But the longest one's like about 4 hours. So if you just like watching me work, there's over a day's worth, over 24 hours worth of streams that you can check out. It doesn't have the same feel, I know. I'm going to try adding this jasmine stuff to, I'm going to try using more flowers and adding it to some green tea that I have and see if those complement one another. I also have jasmine green tea. Sorry I'm talking so much about this. This is my focus, as this is scanning slowly and communicating that I have a YouTube channel that has, I think, 36 subscribers. So I think I sometimes have a habit of giving too much too quickly and then not consistently afterwards, because I get excited about producing things or making things. So it's like, here's $5,000, and then the 3 months afterwards it's no money or something. Or like, I'm committed to working 8 hours a day on this project for 4 days. And so YouTube, it's a little bit weird having like, here's hours of stuff every day, and if you want to interact with it, you're welcome to. But I think that because it's not as polished or personality driven, I don't have as much of a strong interaction in that realm of things. Also, I've realized that a lot of popular YouTube things are people that monetize enough to do things that sort of... Thank you. I appreciate it. But if you're watching here, you're getting as much, if not more. The realization that a lot of YouTube stuff is people who are at a point or have invested enough time and money to where they can monetize it well enough to try things that are a little bit wasteful, or just like, I wonder what would happen if, and if you're able to monetize creating a video that produces that experience and lets people not put in the time or effort or money into it, then you got a YouTube channel that's pretty good, and I would like to watch it. Oh, it's done scanning. Like, I remember watching one that was a bunch of people getting Roombas to clean up a bunch of chocolate pudding, and just like had weird competitions with these secondhand automatic vacuums. And that's something that I want to see, but I don't want to put in the time, effort, or money into it. So I'll watch a video of it, and then that scratches an itch I didn't know I had. And there's other people who have like a lot of personality sort of stuff that they throw into YouTube experiences. And I didn't grow up with I didn't focus on YouTube personalities. The most that I had was at the very start of things. I was like into Will It Blend. I remember those guys, but that was some dudes who had some real strong blenders. If you do create those situations where you have content where it's obtaining things and creating interesting experiences. Why is this? Oh, I was like, why is it so dark? And I was like, oh, because part of these are drawn in red. If you can monetize it and afford to pay for those Roombas that you bought, then good on you. Interpretation 1080, 180. This is a real big image. This is about 40,000 pixels wide by 54,000 pixels tall, because I scanned it at 4800 DPI. Which means for every inch of space, there's 4,800 pixels. I might just grab I like this dude. Some dry brush bit in there. Copy him. It's a big old guy. Turn a little bit this way, darken some bits, blow out the background. Sorry, I'm narrating something off screen. That's just the easiest way for me to go about this right now. This is a real big image. Okay, Let's make this just 1080 wide. Save it, and I'll just show you one of these guys blown out a little bit. You're welcome. Oh, this is kind of upside down. And then I'll head out in a minute. This will be one of my shorter things. One Faceloops. And then just, yeah, I know that's too big to do whatever. Okay, throw an image here. And then drag it down. So this is actually this guy. But I was able to scan it at a high enough resolution to where I could print it. What's 12,000 divided by 3? 120 divided by 3, 60 inches? I could make it yay big and still have decent resolution. That's crazy. Okay. I guess it's like about 2 or 3 inches. If I did at 600 DPI, I could print it yay big. And yeah, okay, 60 inches. That's how big I could print this little dude. Because I took 5 minutes to scan. Any other questions, concerns, comments, thoughts? I'll have this, probably this guy up for being on a t-shirt in 30 to 40 minutes after stopping this guy. Otherwise, I'll head out. Today was just talking a little bit and having some Faceloops because I didn't prepare. But these are going to come. These days are going to come. But I have to keep up with doing it for a month at least. If I do that, then I can do it for a year. I also might drop off weekends eventually. And change formats a little bit. So I might not travel with all this equipment. I'm guessing your names. I could critique. I can talk about whatever things. You can just DM me. I have a specific sort of style and aesthetic. And I might talk around things a lot because I don't like confrontation. I'm bad at confrontation. And so I give like 30 different solutions to any problem. And that problem might be, what do you want for food tonight? And I'm like, well, here's all the different solutions. Where's Yellow Duck? Yellow Duck's over yonder. Okay, but any other questions? If you want to DM me, you can. Or if you want to email me, that's TraceLoops@traceloops.com. I'm generally pretty open. I'm not overwhelmed by interactions with folks at this point in time. That might change in the future. But for now, I answer pretty much whatever unless it's insulting, threatening, or just asking like, hey, can I get free stuff? Hey, can I use all of your work for free? That's not my favorite. But otherwise, gonna head out. Give it like 20 seconds. Because there's a delay between broadcast. You guys see it, you respond. And I see it because I'm watching this feed on my phone to see how it's going. Alright, I'm probably gonna disconnect now. Be back tomorrow. Adios.